Hello there, my name is Brother Sean, and I'm here to share with you from my heart about an interesting topic that does scare a lot of people. It scared me for many years as a young nursing monk. Ways that the Antichrist can get to us, or maybe how we can fall prey to his clutches. It's a lot easier than you imagine. For example, in the monastery many years ago, you'd come across brother monks set in their ways, having been in the monastic life for a number of years. And they had their own set place at the dining table, they had their own set place in chapel. And if you were to sit in it by mistake, you'd incur a few Irish expletives. Obviously stuck and clearly unhappy. But this morning I was guided to just share with you some traits that I've encountered in my life. And I pray that they may help you. And if not, just delete the video. So some of the notes I've written down are, as I've explained, based on personal experience. For example, I'm a member of the Teo community of St. Francis, a modern lay monastic community that currently is online, where we have members all around the world living a simple life like Francis. Some are living as hermits, where they don't really want to engage with the modern world, and certainly not with technology, although they do join me for morning or evening prayer, live on Facebook or YouTube. But what I've encountered over the last 12 years since Christ founded this community with Francis in Assisi, where he guided my heart to welcome God's children of different beliefs to come and give their life to God for unity and peace. And over the 12 years, we've welcomed some beautiful, amazing souls. But we also didn't realize that in the community there were individuals who had their own agenda. An agenda of power, where behind the scenes they were tittle-tattling, causing discontent, using members of the community to back up their schemes in a subtle way. That's one ploy the Antichrist will use to cause dissension in a community of love. I've seen it in the monastic life in the Catholic Church. You'll also become a target if you're locked in a mindset of fear, of unforgiveness, where you nurture hate, where you lash out at others in an uncaring, unchristian way, where you may even blackmail others so as to control or manipulate them. And that I found to my own loss in our own community, where a member who had a drink problem and we didn't realize it. And then in their formation, we discovered that they knew best. They didn't do their studies. They made excuses. They would cancel their support sessions with their mentor, who was an ordained monastic monk in the community. A clue would have been their eye contact. They would refuse to make eye contact. Others would blatantly refuse to do the homework because they knew better. who came from a strong Christian background and obviously were retired, but stuck. But if you were to ask me, what would be the principal factor that would initiate you being a target for these dark forces of deep, dark, dense energy? A closed heart. A closed heart to God's love. And I know for many years I had a closed heart in the monastery, basically to protect myself from some really painful experiences. But today, as the spiritual midwife, shadowing, supporting, mentoring new recruits and our brother and sister monks in the community around the world, the majority of our community, their hearts are opened to the God they love, where they don't have a hidden agenda to deceive, to control or manipulate. And you can sense that in the conversation, but I've been fooled and hoodwinked. Last year, I had a rather painful experience where a member who had taken vows as a lay Franciscan in the Catholic Church, and she knew all the right people. She was always dropping names, so I know so-and-so, at some big center in the UK. And I got on really well with this person. I trusted them. They shared lots of issues. We supported them. We tried to mentor them. But then after a few months, I became aware of something and I had no proof. And the Lord allowed me to experience a painful situation where this nun was going behind my back, excuse me, and behind the back of a dear friend who's the founder of the Order of Franciscan Hermits, saying all sorts of scandalous things, discrediting the integrity of myself and Brother Paul. But not only that, but going on the database on Facebook and trying to raise up a mighty army of people who would agree with them. It was a very painful few months. And sitting in prayer, a part of me, my humanity, wanted to go over and meet this person and punch the lights out. Forgive me for being honest. But the Lord just made it clear. Send them love. Forgive them. But then in prayer, he would remind me, look what they did to me. A lamb led to the slaughter. But I never defended myself because that was the will of my Father, Mother God. I remember myself 7 years ago when my mom was dying in Dublin. Well, she wasn't dying at that time. She was very ill. And she had to go to A&E in a hospital in Dublin because she had extensive bruising. And thank God, a dear friend who was on duty in casualty recognized her and knew it was my mum and phoned me to say, your mum's in casualty. It looks as if she's been beaten up. And she was. Not by a stranger, but by my young brother and his wife, because they wanted her wealth and they wanted to convince the family that mother had dementia and that she was falling and she was drunk. Untrue. And then it came to light that as a former nurse of 38 years, both as a nursing monk and as a qualified nurse, I was approached by some of my brothers and sisters to say, Sean, can you deal with this? And I thought, oh gosh. So I used my limited experience because I'm retired from nursing And I had to report my brother to the health minister in Dublin. What I didn't realize, the health minister was his boss. And suddenly, within 24 hours, my name was mud on the internet. My young brother, obviously a very proud man like my dad, put it on the internet that I was sacked from the monastery for sleeping with the monks. Hello. I was sacked from nursing for sleeping with patients, that I was a scammer and an evil person. I was a Satanist, and that the community I belong to is just a community where you can experience all kinds of sinful acts. I was shocked. My initial reaction, I wanted to get on the first plane to Dublin and kick his butt. But the Lord knew I was hurting, but he said, be still. Be still. Be still. Send him love and pray for him. And I've done that every day since. But it hurts from time to time when somebody sends me an email to say, are you the Brother Shalom that was sacked from nursing and sacked from the monastery? And suddenly the Antichrist has a go at me. He makes me feel useless, worthless. Yeah, so I have to go to bed and lie down because I live with severe depression. But having said that, I didn't retaliate. And that's one ploy the Antichrist wants us to do, is to seek revenge. But I take comfort from the words of Jesus. Don't just forgive them once, but forgive them 70 times 7. But the great Buddha Dhampada said, hate is not overcome by hate. Hate is overcome by love. And if you were to look at hate, I would say that's the symbol of the Antichrist. And love, the personification and symbol of Christ's love. But sometimes in our humanity, well, me especially, because I'm quite naive, because I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. I don't dance with the tunes of other people who seek revenge. I guess I've been in nursing so long, I could almost identify with so many personalities. And working with so many nurses, those who were dedicated and those who were lazy and who would cause trouble for those who were dedicated. But what would some of the symptoms and feelings be that would attract the Antichrist or these dark forces into your life? Well, as I said earlier, unforgiveness, where you find it difficult to forgive someone who's hurt you, deceived you, wronged you. If we don't forgive, then we can't expect to be forgiven. Or in Ireland, we had a saying, I forgive you, but Jesus, I'll never forget what you've done. That's not forgiveness. That's conditional forgiveness. And that's not what God calls us to do. Unresolved conflicts, where you wallow and you loop from one crisis to another because you're right and everybody else is wrong. An unwillingness to listen to your heart, the gateway to your soul, for it is the gateway to God. Where you're closed to constructive advice and support, constructive criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized unfairly. But destructive criticism is a ploy that the Antichrist will use. But if something is shared in love, that is not a target for the Antichrist. Selfishness, where you're so wrapped up in yourself, you don't think about anybody but you. A lack of charity. For example, you walk past somebody who's homeless, you say to your friend, serves them right. They're lazy, they don't want to work. Not true. They could have been evicted or abused sexually by a parent or a partner, and their only safe escape was to get out. And because they couldn't access a home or a room, they lived rough on the street, and I've met many of them. Judgmental attitudes. Since over the last 12 years, we've been the spiritual midwife overseeing the Teo community, a community that, as I've explained, was founded by Christ and St. Francis. I've incurred a lot of judgment in emails, on the internet when I go live for prayer, from Christians, evangelicals, and from outdated old-fashioned Catholic Christians who will condemn you for using the word Father, Mother, God. And they're looking for biblical proof where Christ founded the community. Their hearts are closed. Their actions are motivated by fear. As I was for many years, I was. But it took a major breakdown at the loss of my dear brother Monk of 28 years, who died of cancer age 42. And after 3 months of trying to cope with the loss, I was put on Prozac. And that was the introduction to becoming bipolar, that I live with every day. But the plus side, my breakdown was God's breakthrough for me. It was my breakthrough from years of negativity and guilt, where I put myself down. When I left the nursing order through ill health, we were condemned to hell for daring to leave. And I took 12 years in counseling to get over that guilt. That's not God's way. And all these negative feelings I nurtured and harbored alienated me from God. But God had a plan. And though 4 years in limbo, suffering, fearful of people because of this problem I had from the breakdown, I was being shown how to walk again and trust. To trust Christ, my beloved. And though I celebrated my Golden Jubilee last December the 8th, of taking my vows on the 8th of December 1968, it's only now that I'm beginning to see and discern and feel the presence of God, and not to sit in judgment. But many who say they love God do sit in judgment because of people's color or creed, ethnicity, or their orientation, their lifestyle change, their disability. We're not called to judge. We're called to love. And that's why I feel so proud to be a member of the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans. Although I still am a Christian in here, some of our brothers and sisters are Hindu and Sikh and Jew, Muslim, Baha'i. They continue to practice their own faith, but when we come together to praise a loving God with many names, where there is no conversion to their belief, but there's a respect, a tolerance, and love prevails. That's why I feel so comfortable in Christ's community today than in a former Catholic order. It was quite narrow, and we were always told that it was the one true faith and everybody else would go to hell. How dreadful to say those things. In our Father's house in heaven, there are many rooms for all God's children. And if Christ didn't approve of what we do, he wouldn't have founded the Teo community at Assisi. He wouldn't be asking us to welcome brothers and sisters of different beliefs. Would he? But he has. So our journey is one of faith, one of trust, but not to sit in judgment. But when we go live with morning and evening prayer, it always comes up, the Holy Spirit tugs at your heart to say, pray for those who say they love God, but whose hearts are closed to God, because they choose to sit in judgment. Within the Christian family, there are 1,424 divisions of Christians, and only a few tolerate the other. Tragic. And it's the same with all religion, which is man-made. The Buddhists, there's fractions there with the different traits of Buddhism, schools of Buddhism. The same with the Hindus and the Sikhs. In Islam, with the traditional fundamental Muslims, who have a great mistrust of the Sufi that I love, and where many Baha'i are still being imprisoned and tortured in Iran. Within the Jewish faith, you've got the Orthodox, the non-Orthodox, the Reformed, the not Reformed, the liberal Jews, and there's a lot of animosity there. So for me, the Teo community is about helping me face my fear and not to judge and not to become a target for the Antichrist. Another way would be, we said, about hidden agendas to control. In our community, we've had almost 3 schisms, meaning almost 3 breakups, where 3 members came on board full of fervor, full of love, and they had an agenda to control it and create a subgroup that didn't include God. A bit like St. Francis, when he founded the Franciscans, Brother Elias created a division. They wear the black today, and Francis' followers wear the brown. Wherever you've got responsibility and power, egos are fed from their power. They have a desire for more power to control. You look at all religions today. I can only look at my own church, the Catholic Church within the Vatican, and you see those power-hungry men who are not giving the witness to the barefoot Galilean because they enjoy their position of power, and many yield that power as a weapon on good lives. We've lost many beautiful theologians like Matthew Fox, Lavinia Byrne, because they dared to speak God's truth. But thankfully, through the awful sex scandal abuse within the church, where the enemy of God was rampant, the Antichrist was alive and well and kicking in the Catholic Church when its clergy were allowing paedophile priests go to different parishes and continue the abuse, because many condoned it instead of condemning it. But under the new leadership of Pope Francis, things have changed. He is a good man, and he replicates a lot of the original teachings of Francis of Assisi. I feel safe with him, and I trust him. But the Antichrist will strike you if your heart is closed, if you harbor feelings of guilt, if you harbor feelings of hatred, unforgiveness, if you're unwilling to face your greatest fear and move forward. That's why in the formation of our novices and postulants, we were guided years ago to use the document by Teresa of Avila, Entering the Castle, the 7 amazing mansions. Yeah. And in those mansions, the first 3 mansions, you do actually meet the Antichrist in your own weaknesses, in your shadows, in the many faces you use, the masks you use. Maybe they're still locked in your subconscious mind, but they're brought out in love. You're not invited to go through them using neuro-linguistic programming. You're guided by Teresa of Avila and the Christ to recognize what it is, to name it, bless it, and immediately release it to God. Not to dwell on it, but to release it to God. But those who come from ego, the head ones in the community, they wanted to know the ins and outs of everything about their faults and why is this happening, and they end up losing the plot. They get discouraged. The Antichrist discourages them even more, where they feel unfulfilled and that they can't just name, bless, and release the issues to Christ. They have to work through it. Ego. They lose the plot. They end up becoming discouraged by the Antichrist and leave their community. So God has given us a template through Teresa of Avila, a great doctor of the Catholic Church. But interestingly, entering the castle isn't just for Christians. Oh no. Mother Olivia in our community actually has taught many women from the Hindu and Sikh tradition entering the castle, the 5 mansions, and they loved it. They loved it because it empowered them, experience divine intimacy, divine seduction with the beloved, like Teresa. By acknowledging their failings, by giving them to Christ or their God, and moving forward. So if you want to become a target for the Antichrist, keep your heart closed, wallow in victimhood, feel sorry for yourself, harbor unforgiveness, become extremely difficult and awkward. Allow your ego lead you astray. But for those of us who choose not to engage with the Antichrist, we've nothing to be afraid of. I've experienced several rather unpleasant encounters from him, the Antichrist, last year. And I'm not here to frighten you. I'm here to say truthfully, he does exist. But some Christians dismiss it as being old wives' tales. Yeah, but he does exist. Trust me, I wouldn't lie to you. But the great Saint Teresa of Avila, who was regularly tempted by the Antichrist, she was in bed one night in her cell, and she really was going through a difficult time where he was throwing the bed in the air. And she happened to pop her head through the covers and say, "Is it you again?" She went back to sleep and everything stopped. We have power at our disposal to ward off all entity attack, all dark energy in the blood of Christ. So I have shared with our novices and postulants, junior professed monks and sisters, and our hermits over the years, if you sense you're under attack, be still. Call on Christ, and in his name, wash whatever is happening to you or whatever you're going through in the precious blood of Christ, and command the dark energy or the Antichrist to depart in the name of Christ. And guess what? It happens. Let us just be still now, and let us end with a positive note by just asking you to close your eyes, to be still. And in the stillness, be aware that you are not alone on this journey. Your false self may convince you you're struggling alone, that nobody cares about you. Well, the Christ cares about you. If you're a Christian, if you're a Buddhist, the Lord Buddha. If you're a Hindu or Sikh, the Lord Vishnu, Ganesh, and Krishna. But for me, it is the Christ. Just be still now. And just be aware that Christ is with you now. And he takes your hand. You feel his power and you sense his love. But you sense him speaking to your heart in the stillness, in the quietness. I am with you. I never said that life would be easy in this life. But what I've said to you time and again, I will never leave you. I will never abandon you because you are a child of God. Yes, many abandon me when they allow their head, their fears, anxieties, and painful memories close their heart down so they can no longer receive my healing touch. But I ask you now, open your heart and allow me touch it. And you sense the Lord Jesus placing his healing hands over your heart. You feel the vibrations of love, peace, and joy come over you. And in the stillness of this hour, you again hear Jesus saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. You are mine. Blessed are they who do not see me and yet believe, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Remember, we have nothing to be afraid of. If our hearts are open to God, and that we spend time listening and having a conversation with our God. But the moment we allow negative forces, negative energy, negative mindsets infiltrate God's peace, then we run the risk of becoming a sitting duck for the Antichrist. But always remember the words of the great Empada. Hate is not overcome by hate. Hate is overcome by love. And God is love. And if we truly love God and ask for God's protection, especially from Archangel Michael, then nothing or no one will let us become a sitting duck for the Antichrist. Because we have the love of God on our side. We have the might of Michael the Archangel protecting us. So be strong and listen to your heart, your teacher, the gateway to your soul. For your soul is the gateway to God. Thank you for listening to this old monk. I pray that the words I've shared with you will have empowered you today. Take back your power from all negativity, negative mindsets, feelings of I'm not good enough, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and reflect on the words of Jesus. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Namaste, Shalom, Inshallah, Pax et Bonum, OmShanti, Solo di Caritas, Salam Alaikum, and may the peace and the love and the joy of being loved by God keep you safe and well. And remember, you are protected. Till we meet again. Bless you.